I think with television, we see most shows lean towards a middle class aesthetic, not only to appeal to the middle class, but also to give the working class something to aspire to. Then, from an upper class perspective, making them feel more in touch with the realities of everyday people. With the Gallaghers growing up in poverty, there were very limited options available to them, and it showed. In my Debbie video, I mentioned that in Shameless UK, Debbie Gallagher joins the military after leaving the household, but she was not the only sibling that worked for the government, as Manchester Carl also became a cop during the last few seasons of the UK series. Carl may be the only character in the UK series to have a somewhat similar ending to their character in the US series, even after 11 seasons of both shows. I want to take a side-by-side look at these two characters. Manchester Carl was in 109 out of 139 episodes, being the Gallagher child in the most episodes of the UK version. This right away shows that both Carls were pretty much always involved with the show in some way. However, Carl's role in both versions starts out the smallest out of all the Gallagher children. I mean, even Liam is seen more because he's usually with Fiona or Debbie. When looking at birth order, Manchester Carl was supposed to be a year older than Debbie, but I can't lie, I always thought Debbie was a year older than Carl just based on maturity, which is funny because in the US version they made Debbie a little over a year older than Carl. All that to say, Carl doesn't really have many responsibilities early on when everyone else is busy. Both Carls were the youngest boys for a while before Liam came along, so to their older siblings, they still tend to see Carl as the baby brother of the family. Because of this, Carl in both versions doesn't have to mature and he can enjoy his childhood a little bit longer than his other siblings, which is why I think he has a closer relationship with Frank for longer than the others and can brush off his wrongdoings. With Manchester Carl, he was actually played by twins Elliott and Luke Tittensor before Elliott took over Carl in season 2. So in the first season, they would use both twins in a scene to demonstrate how wild Carl was and that he was essentially all over the place all the time. That way, you'd always see Carl somewhere in the scene, but he didn't necessarily have lines. This is similar to Carl's character in the first season of the US show, except it was only played by one actor. Whenever Chicago Carl was mentioned or was on screen, he was doing something wildly random. He was that kid. So with both Carls being these wild boys, we can see how they fit into the youngest son archetype on television. Usually Carl is shown acting out or being weird in a normalized way. In this, Carl got away with a lot of childish behavior because he usually wasn't a priority compared to the other criminal and urgent matters going on around the Gallagher household. Carl was old enough to take basic care of himself, but not necessarily old enough to know better. Basically, the kids from Disney, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network shows, but like living in poverty. One of the key differences between Manchester Carl and Chicago Carl is their toughness. Manchester Carl is tall for his age and looks older, but out of the Gallagher kids, he is the softest of the siblings. Manchester Carl actually finds a gun and fatally shoots his neighbor's husband, but he's totally petrified when it happens, and his siblings have to help him get away with it.
You! Snap out of it or disappear.
I don't want her to go. Neither would I if I was in as much bother as you.
Tough shit, Carl. Fiona's going. Say one wrong word before she does and I'll cut your tongue out. Got it? And that goes for all of you. If Fiona finds out about Carl, you're all dead.
Penny, Fizz, Pete and Minter. Debbie's explained it's for charity.
Oh,
Hi, please. We're fucked. Square one.
Which we see as a repeated pattern with Carl early on. His brothers are also constantly making fun of him and looking down on his level of intelligence. They don't take him seriously, and this causes Carl to resent them sometimes.
Yeah?
How much is there? Not much.
Alright, I'm in.
Nice one.
Why do you think they didn't want to do it, stupid?
Oh, piss off.
Other people get ditched and survive. Don't be so soft.
It's not the first time, Deb.
Yeah.
Bastard!
For fucking eyes.
Where'd you get the box? Cardboard box, Carl, about this big. Used to have an iron inside it.
Can't fucking see.
Hey, stop pissing about. Where did you get it from? It's important.
I wasn't even doing anything.
Shut up, Carl. We just need to know.
More so Lip than Ian, but Lip also fit the lad archetype that was popular for boys in Manchester in the 90s and 2000s, which made him cool on the estate. Lad culture was generally defined by young British men or lads engaging with football, drinking beer, chatting up girls, and being boisterous. It's known to be similar to the 2000s, 2010s bro culture. Initially, Carl struggles to do the same like Lip does, which causes even further resentment, especially once Carl sees the way Lip treats girls.
Per day.
You bastard!
What's this, an
I
ambush?
saw you with that skank Mandy Maguire.
So what?
That's who you've been seeing, innit? Her.
Seeing? Yeah.
You're a fucking disgrace, you are.
What's he got to do with you, twatted?
You're supposed to be going out with Emily.
The only reason I'm seeing Mandy is to see my kid. It's got nothing to do with Emily.
Didn't see you with a baby today, though. Why did you lie you was going around Emily's every night if you're not shagging Mandy? Why are you keeping it a secret if it's just what you said?
Manchester Carl grew from a child into a young adult without much drastic change outside of him going through puberty and slightly maturing, along with standing up for himself more. During this time, we can see Carl get better at being an older brother to Stella and Liam. Outside of his laddish behavior, Carl was actually quite decent. He wasn't necessarily a bad kid and had a good moral compass, but was still a teenage boy trying to understand the world around him and his relationship with others. Unlike Manchester Carl, who avoided getting into trouble for the most part, Chicago Carl was trouble and wore it proudly. Unlike Manchester Carl's early crimes being accidental, Chicago Carl intentionally tries to hurt people, like when he poisoned his cousin Patrick.
Nausea, shortness of breath, blood and urine, severe illness, and death.
What the hell are you reading?
Rat poison.
However, where both Carls are alike is in their levels of intelligence. Carl was built as a quote-unquote dumb character who wasn't that bright, so we very rarely see Carl have beef with any of his siblings for long periods of time. Both Carls channeled their anger outward to protect the Gallagher family, functioning almost like guard dogs. The contrast between Carls couldn't be more different as they got older, as we see Manchester Carl soften and Chicago Carl harden. In Chicago, once Frank gets sick and Carl tries to help Frank get drugs to ease his pain, this is around the time Carl descends into the world of street crime, stealing, and dealing. Through this, we see Carl become a juvenile delinquent very quickly as he eventually gets caught and has to spend time locked up. Though both Carls were fascinated with sex when they were younger, while Chicago Carl was going to juvie.
If you want to go into my chambers and speak to me off the record, now is the time. Otherwise, you will end up in juvenile prison. Is that what you want?
Yes, please.
That's not what I was hoping to hear.
I know what you were hoping to hear. If Your Honor would lose 20 pounds, I would consider tapping that.
Manchester Carl was discovering his libido and sexual attention. As he was going through puberty, the girls weren't really into Carl. Despite looking mature and having good intentions,
You should be with someone who does stuff for you, gives you all the presents and stuff. You're gorgeous, and I know you understand stuff about people because you feel things, like what I do. There's always stuff I could talk to you about, stuff from my head.
Yeah, Carl, can you just fuck off?
Carl didn't have much of a personality, which made him one note. Eventually, everyone on the chats were, from older women to younger girls to Mickey, had a crush on Carl. All of his storylines that revolved around his jobs always end up leading to him hooking up with someone. This makes Manchester Carl a peak lad around the estate, and he starts to get a certain type of respect and attention for it. Turning to the south side, we see Chicago Carl transform in prison into what we know as peak white boy Carl. Now, in a similar way to how we see Manchester Carl took on lad culture because that was what he was around, Chicago Carl took on hood culture because that was what he was around. The difference being lad culture was stereotypically for white boys, hood culture was stereotypically for black and brown boys. By Carl adopting this cultural aesthetic, he became the hood white boy, which we can see at its peak in the 2000s with white hip-hop icons like Eminem and Paul Wall. So by the mid-2010s, when white boy Carl emerged, black culture was hyper-visible in the mainstream. We see this also with the emergence of musicians like Mac Miller, rest in peace, Machine Gun Kelly, and most importantly, in this case, Post Malone. Post Malone had just released his debut hit single, White Iverson, in 2015, so by the time white boy Carl was released from juvie, a lot of youth culture back then and even today walks the line of appropriation and appreciation. So white boy Carl wasn't an exception. As a white kid growing up in a predominantly black area, Chicago Carl adopts the aesthetic of black culture as a survival tactic, not only in juvie, but in his neighborhood once he gets out. Growing up without a lot of positive male influences, both Carls lean on their local areas to shape their identities as boys, not only trying to become men, but men that are respected. As Manchester Carl gets older, and being a lad isn't enough for his girlfriend Maxine to keep their baby and stay with him, Carl realizes that by working with the Maguires, specifically Jamie Maguire, the leader of the Maguires' criminal enterprise, he can work to get the power and respect that he desires on the estate. But unlike the Maguires, Carl doesn't like to hurt people. Manchester Carl's never involved with anything violent, and for most of the time, he's just washing stolen cars. As much as the Maguires learn to love and care for Carl, they know he's not a criminal like the rest of them.
I've killed a man.
No, you haven't.
I have. I shot him. And his head fell off.
Well, good for you. So you come to have a pop at me then, have you? Come to prove yourself to the hard man. Well, come on then, if you want some. Do you want some?
So every time we see Carl given a big job, something always goes wrong, but similar to how Carl's siblings used to save him, we see the Maguires take on this role. Taken in the other direction, Chicago Carl feels powerful and respected amongst his peers and family for his money and status as white boy Carl.
Hey, can I get a relocation advance?
But Dominique isn't impressed. When he meets her father, who happens to be a cop, he isn't impressed either. This bothers Carl as the hood respect that he had earned doesn't translate when he meets black people who are not about that life.
Same mom, same pops. Don be calling me white all day, so I had to make a point, sir. Just because his skin is a little darker than mine ain't no reason to call a nigga white.
I'm gonna give you a 10-second head start. You better run, boy, and take Shaq with you.
After Carl's friend Nick brutally attacks the guy who stole his bike, Carl realizes following the path he's on will lead him to death or prison. Carl wants to get out of the criminal life, but he's too valuable to the bosses and they won't let him go. Until he goes there with Fiona's fiance at the time, Sean, who steps in as a father figure for Carl and helps him get out of a bad situation. Chicago Carl then spends more time with Dominique's dad, Luther, who becomes another important role model for Carl.
You still applying to cadet school?
I don't have the grades.
When I think about military school, look, I was a banger like you, from a hood like this, and all sorts of devious shit. You don't need all that shit dragging you down. Not when you can sleep in a clean bed every night to the sound of nothing.
As he leaves the criminal life behind and enrolls into military school. We see both Manchester and Chicago Carl have multiple male influences that take the place of Frank and help to give them guidance as they try to figure themselves out.
You know what's really true and what's to be admired, Carl? You've never hurt anybody in your life, have you?
Of course I fucking have. You kidding? Welsh taffy when I busted bullets. Spent a fortnight in hospital, ask anybody.
Yeah, that's because he threatened your Debbie and you wanted to hurt him back, sure. You've never hurt anybody first, have you?
Don't think I wouldn't know how to.
You should be really proud of that.
Cut out your puff.
Neither of us wants to hear me say this. Give your dad to thank for that.
In both shows, once Carl's adolescent persona starts to slip away and he wants something more than what is readily accessible to him, he's forced to figure out who he wants to be and how to gain proper respect through it.
20 applicants to clean dishes, and they tell me lack of experience. I'm unemployable. I can't make out, fix out. I won't even give me a job.
Oh dear, dry your eyes. There's a place in the workforce for everybody, Carl, even coconuts like you.
I do something that people are impressed by, and it needs to be around girls.
So you want a job that gets you laid? Don't require you to think?
Suppose. And if I could travel, great. You'll see the world on that.
Uniform?
Ladies love a man in uniform.
I'll show yous. I'm gonna do something that gets me respect.
Since they had already tried and failed to become men through breaking the rules, Carl was then left to consider why the rules are important. Looking at Frank, someone who broke the rules his entire life, it's clear as to why Carl would do a complete 180 and go in the opposite direction to avoid ending up like his father. As Manchester Carl is left with no real respect within the Maguire family business.
Join the family business?
That is funny, Carl, because I just left.
I hope you know what you're getting yourself into.
So the fucking job round here with any prospect.
You're a dickhead, Carl.
Stupid, naive little prick. He's just made the biggest mistake of his life.
And how's that? You'll see.
And Chicago Carl is banned from ever actually getting to serve in the actual military, Both end up witnessing events that change their outlook of how they can be of service to their communities and still stay true to themselves. In Manchester, when Frank is accused of a brutal crime, Carl works to prove his innocence and find out who committed the crime. We continuously see Carl care for those in need when others aren't paying attention. So when Carl feels like who he is doesn't match up with how he's been living, Carl searches for a sense of courage, and we start to see him go against the grain and enter the police academy in hopes of bettering the neighborhood. In Chicago, Carl takes a new approach to his days of mayhem. Instead of causing problems, Carl works to solve them. Whether it's helping the neighborhood watch out, detoxing local crackheads.
Sorry I gotta keep you down here, son. I understand why you did what you did, but you stole from a veteran, homie. It's a crime against America. Actions have consequences.
Or protecting undocumented community members from ICE. Fuck ICE. Carl uses his time outside of work to make a difference in his area. After a neighbor is killed at a bus stop at night, Carl is drastically impacted and goes out of his way to draw attention to the problem to make sure the bus stop is safer.
Yeah, a woman got shot last night.
Really?
Yeah, guy came out of nowhere, shot her in cold blood.
Where?
Southside.
Oh, she white?
Black.
Young?
Old.
Celebrity?
Grandma.
You ready for me?
Yeah, but she was shot. The streetlights were out because the city didn't care. You could be the first to report on it.
Through this, we can see Carl really embrace his problem-solving abilities and join the police department with the right mindset from the jump.
Oh, shit. You guys bugged the house.
Frank, it's me.
What?
It's Carl, your son.
Oh, shit. My God, I thought you were a real cop.
I am a real cop.
Okay, son.
This character now becoming officer of the law this year, but also doing it for the reasons of his community and wanting to be someone who's a protector of the community that he's grown and loved and is a part of. And I think that's where it's going to be a really interesting subject to narrate this year and throw Carl's in this position to where you would never expect to see him in this position at all. But now you'll start seeing him actually be the voice of opposition to what people honestly see people of the law in a lot of these situations in low-income neighborhoods especially.
Looking back at the environments they became police in, Manchester Carl grew up in the 2000s in the UK when policing and counterterrorism was increased after 9/11, which claimed the lives of 67 British citizens. Police were becoming more respected due to the news and mainstream propaganda that portrayed them in more heroic lights, increasing public confidence. Manchester Carl became a cop right before social media took off, and people started using their digital profiles to call out abuse in such an open way. However, we see Manchester Carl resist corruption when Jamie tries to pay him, showing Carl as a good cop. We can see how this is different from Chicago Carl, who grew up in the 2010s in the US when police corruption and crime was being highlighted via cell phones and social media. The idea of just some bad cops versus a corrupt system started to become more mainstream in popular culture, with the Black Lives Matter movement reaching a peak in the early 2020s after the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, and many other black people as well. Chicago Carl was joining the police knowing that the system was corrupt, but still believing after all he had survived, he'd be able to withstand becoming a bad cop. However, once he joined, he started seeing the different types of cops that worked at his station.
Never been shot, never shot at. You know why? I don't leave the car.
Well, hey there, officer. Something I can get you? Ow, are you? What is wrong with you? Get off of me. You know how much we make off of kickback and bribes from street dealers?
Isn't that wrong?
Paid for my boat. It paid for my second mistress's first Brazilian butt lift.
We frame legal shops, we shut them down, we get more illegal weed back on the street. More illegal weed equals more dealers equals more cash in our pockets.
Realizing the problem was the system itself and how it promotes and uplifts the most corrupt cops, while penalizing the ones who attempt to call it out and try to change the system from within. Manchester and Chicago Carl were able to capture the ethical trials of boyhood while growing up in a poor neighborhood, emphasizing the conflicting pathways and limited outcomes available for those left with few resources.